I should start this video off by saying that I have lived in the Tampa area for a little over a year now, and I absolutely love it here. But just like anywhere does, it does have its flaws. Now, the flaws that it has may not be a deal breaker for me, but there are things that definitely could be deal breakers for other people, and definitely things that should be weighed before making a decision to move here. We're going to cover 11 things today that people that move here without being aware of might not like at all after moving here. Let's go ahead and just get started with number one. Weather can be bad during certain months anywhere you go. But here, the heat and the humidity in the summer can be absolutely unbearable. I mean, to the point where you don't even want to leave your house. If it's 90, I don't even like going outside. Now, many places can have negatives. In California, I lived in the Central Valley there for 20 years before moving out here. And the weather in the summer, although it wasn't hot humidity-wise like the weather is out here, when it gets up to like 100 degrees, it doesn't have to be humid. It's just absolutely unbearable there. And you have the same thing in many places in Phoenix, Arizona. You have the same thing in Las Vegas. It can get very hot in many cities in Texas. Up in the Northeast area, I can't speak for the summers. Pam says they get really bad humidity up there, but it sure gets cold in the winter. I mean, to the point where those people can't wait to retire to come down to Florida to get away from the winters. So the bottom line is weather can be bad everywhere, but if you come here, be prepared for some pretty downright miserable days in the summer where it's just too hot and too humid to be outside. I mean, it's too hot to be sitting outside in the shade. But if you work outside, let's say you're a roofer or a construction worker, or you're just going to be outside in that heat, you may not be super happy here in the summertime. So that's number one. Numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the next 5 reasons, they were all separate reasons, but they all relate to driving around in this area. Starting with number 2, it's just not easy to get around here. Even without the traffic at all, if you're getting on the road at 4 o'clock on a Saturday, it's just not easy to get around here. The freeway system absolutely sucks. Because this area is laid out the way it is, you have that Tampa area, and then you have this huge peninsula in the Pinellas County that comes down, and then off that peninsula you have all the Keys offshore, all those islands. It's not like you're sitting in the middle of Kansas and you can set this city up on just a straight grid where everything goes, right in order. I think that's a large part of the problem. I think another part of the problem is I think maybe this city probably grew faster than they were ready for. And the road system just is not laid out good. The roads just kind of go willy-nilly, and many of the main roads just kind of wind around aimlessly. And many of the main roads don't really seem to connect, at least not in any easily identifiable way. I've been here a year now, and many days I just get out and go for a drive. I just drive randomly, and I still haven't figured out a lot of those roads north and northeast of downtown Tampa. I get confused all the time down there. That freeway system is just an absolute mess. And I think that freeway system leads to confusion. There's no good freeway system at all. I talked about that peninsula with Pinellas County. Well, there's no good freeway system at all to get you to or from North Pinellas County. Or if you look at the bay, it's kind of shaped like a heart. The left side of that at the top, they call that Old Tampa Bay. And north of Old Tampa Bay and many of those areas around there, there's no freeway system to get you around there either, to the point where I'm having a really difficult time figuring out where I want to purchase a property, because there's a lot of areas I like in northern Pinellas County, but it's just not easy to get anywhere from there. If I want to go from here to Sarasota, it's like a 30-minute drive before I can even get on the freeway to start driving south that way. And so it adds a lot of driving time to your trip. In addition to the northern Pinellas County and north of Old Tampa Bay, if you're in southern Pinellas County, there's just no good way to get to those Pinellas County beaches down by Treasure Island. And if you're in South Tampa it's really not easy to get in and out of there either without sitting in some heavy traffic oftentimes. So the number 2 reason is that it is just hard to get around this area, and it's hard to figure out how to get from A to B, period. Number 3, in addition to the roads not being where they need to be or being laid out poorly, the roads are dangerous and they're confusing. If you are driving down the road, let's say you've gone 275 and now you're going on Highway 4, leaving Tampa, you're heading towards Orlando. There's like many areas where there's exits that are on both sides of the road. Like the first time I drove down there, I'm driving down the road and it's like, exit so-and-so coming up. So I'm thinking, okay, the exit's coming up. So I move over to the right. What? The exit's on the left side of the road. So it exits out of the fast lane. So then what happens? Then I got to shift lanes all the way to the fast lane. The first time I went out that way, it was too crowded. I couldn't get over in time. So now I missed it. So now I go to take the next exit. Well, I'll get off and turn around. What? The next exit's out of the fast lane too. Then after that, the exit is on the right lane, out of the slow lane. So I got off that and I just had to reroute. But I can see this switching back and forth causing a lot of lane changes that not only are dangerous, but that do lead to that congestion. If you're going to St. Petersburg, you're shooting off the left lane to go to the pier. A lot of the other exits off the right lane, and it leads to this situation where you end up being confused. You have to drive things a few times before you know which side of the road to get off on. And unfortunately, like I'll get to a little bit down the road, a lot of people in the area here have not driven these roads a number of times. The 4th reason that you might not like this area is there are a high volume of drivers that are either dangerous or they're just rude. You have a combination of a number of things. You have rude and angry drivers. There's a lot of them down here. I've spent a lot of time in Jacksonville, and I don't see those kind of drivers on the road at all in Jacksonville compared to how bad they are on the road here. But you also have a lot of older drivers here. I'm going to get to this a little bit down to the road, but there's a significantly older population that is in this area. And so with the older drivers, sometimes they're slower drivers. And you get this concoction of these like psychotic drivers going 110 miles an hour in a 50, and these older drivers going 15 miles an hour in a 50, and it's just a bad concoction. Cut me some slack for the little dudes, by the way. It's not like I could exactly go around driving looking for crazy people and really old people on the road to take photographs of. I can tell you, however, that these little dudes do represent the traits I'm talking about, and bonus points if you even have any idea who they are. Add into that, this is a huge vacation destination. So you have a ton of vacationers on the road who aren't paying attention and just don't know the area at all. So you get this concoction of vacationers, new people in town, crazy angry drivers, and old people. And it is a very dangerous concoction to have on the road, especially when you're adding it to those other things. The 5th reason that you might want to hesitate on moving here, you are going to be driving in some heavy rain here. I mean, heavy, heavy rain. You don't get so many rainy days, but you do get rainy hours, and it can just dump on you. Just dump, dump, dump. So heavy your wipers can't even keep up with it. And when it gets that heavy, the road gets wet really quick. Certain areas flood really, really quickly. I was in the process of putting a YouTube video together, kind of a abridged version of this, 10 Reasons Not to Move to Florida. And one day it was raining really, really heavy. And I said, wow, this is raining pretty good. I'm going to get in my car. And I was only going like 15 miles an hour, but just up the street from me here, I'm like, I'm going to drive down this and record this little deserted street, what it's like riding in the rain here so people can see this. I got in my car. It actually let up a little bit while I was actually recording. It was coming down so bad that in a 15-second walk to my car, I got to my car and it looked like I had just jumped in a pool. I had to take my shirt off because it was too soaked to even wear against the seat. I had to throw it on the floor mat. Anyway, I drove up that road a little bit and I turn right and I stopped at a stop sign and my phone rings. It's Pam's daughter Taylor on the phone. And I know she's out driving because she was on her way to work. I says, what's going on, Tay? And at first she starts going, oh my God, this rain is coming down. And I thought she sounded normal for a second. And then she just broke into tears and lost it on the phone because what she had done was driven behind this area that she worked at, where there was a huge dip down and up, and some cardboard had gotten to the bottom of that, blocked the storm drain, and the whole area had filled with water in no time. And the rain was coming down so bad she could barely see out of her window, and the ground was covered with water, and she couldn't see very well what was a deep puddle or what was just a glazed area. And she's a new driver. She's only been driving about 6 months, but she ended up driving her car into about 3 feet of water, where it locked up, froze, and now her car is out waiting for the insurance people to come look at it and think it's totaled because it was leaking oil all over the place on her. She tried to open her door, and the water came in and flooded the inside of her car. So be ready for the fact that you may have to drive in heavy rains. And if that makes you uncomfortable, it might not be the place for you. And it's not like you can just easily avoid it. You can't just look at your weather app and go, well, it looks like it's going to be rainy today. I think I'm going to stay home, because you don't really get rainy days around here. You get more or less rainy hours. So you could start the day and it could be beautiful, and then all of a sudden it could just start dumping on you and seem like it comes out of the blue. And the apps can never accurately predict that stuff. They say it's going to rain every day if you look at those things. When I filmed this video, it was totally sunny, just like 10 minutes prior. And then like 10 minutes after this video, it was totally dumping rain. And I'm not exaggerating when I say dumping. I filmed this part right here about 5 minutes afterwards, when it just started kind of coming down and the wind started picking up. 10 minutes after, when it was really dumping, I wasn't videotaping that while I was driving. Those 4 aspects all come into consideration with the 5th thing I'm going to talk about. And the final thing I'm going to talk about driving is that insurance is expensive out here. It's really, really expensive. I was looking up how expensive online. I found this article dated February 8th, 2021 by Kelley Blue Book editors. The article lists the states with the highest and lowest car insurance rates. Number 1, guess which state? Florida. So the number 1 state in the entire nation for car insurance is Florida, at $2,587 for a full coverage rate. So the state of Florida is very, very bad as a general rule. And I'm going to go on record as guessing, based on some things that I'm going to get to here in a second, that Tampa is even one of the higher places to get insured in the state. If you go down this article, it says which factors impact the price of your car insurance. The most realistic thing that's going to take me to my point about Tampa being bad is your zip code. It says some localities have higher rates of theft and accidents. Let's talk about accidents in the Tampa Bay area. In 2021, Quote Wizard came out with a list of the top 35 worst drivers by city. And they ranked these cities based on 4 different metrics: accident rank, DUI rank, speeding rank, and citation rank. So they ranked these cities 1 through 35, with 1 being the absolute worst and 35 being the best of the worst 35 cities. So you don't want to be 35 either. Encompassing all 4 of those metrics, the accident rank, DUI rank, speeding rank, and citation rank, Tampa came in at number 31. So pretty bad, the 31st worst driving city in the nation. Going just by accident rank, because they ranked all 4 of those separate and then gave an overall rank. If you go just by accident rank, Tampa came in at number 4, the 4th city ranked in the nation for accidents. Let's take that a step farther. According to EverQuote, there was an article that I saw from 2016 that listed the 10 deadliest interstates in America. So the interstate freeways with the most fatalities. Number 1, deadliest interstate in America was Interstate 4, which Interstate 4 runs from Tampa to Daytona Beach, Florida. I don't know how that qualifies as an interstate, but it says here the 132-mile highway connects I-275 to I-95 and has 1.41 fatalities per mile in the past 6 years, making it the most dangerous interstate in the United States. The highway has also been in the top dangerous interstates for the past 6 years. Now, that's not all Tampa. That goes through Orlando. That goes all the way to Daytona. Taking that one step farther, something that's a little more specific to the Tampa area, I found another article, June 28th, 2021, very recent, from Value Penguin. The last one was the deadliest interstates in America. This one is called the deadliest roads in the United States. And when you go down to number 7, Florida US 41 in Hillsborough County. Then there's a road in Tarrant County, Texas as number 8. And then we're back to Hillsborough County again, which is right where Tampa's at, Florida I-75. So 2 of the top 9 deadliest roads in the United States by county are right here. I know I've taken a large portion of this show to talk about how horrible the driving is, but if you're going to be driving, which if you live here, you're going to be driving because it's so beautiful, you want to get out and about, that is definitely something that you should take into consideration. Let's move on to the number 7 thing that might cause you to hesitate moving to Tampa, Florida. And I just call it gators, snakes, and things that'll kill you. There's a lot of things here that you got to keep an eye out for. You literally can't go in any body of water here because of all the alligators around here. It's funny, when I was up in Jacksonville, I was there a year and a half, never saw an alligator. My first alligator I ever saw was when I went to Miyaka. And since moving here, I see alligators every single day. If you listen to the episode, I don't remember the number, when I talked about Bay Area zoos and animal sanctuaries, I told the story in the very beginning of that episode about coming really, really close to getting bit by a water moccasin. Now, until that date, I was concerned about alligators, but that brought it home to me just how much the gators are not the only thing here that can kill you, that snakes are a thing. I mean, that water moccasin, when I noticed it, was curled up, ready to bite. It was in the ready to strike pose about 12 inches from my left ankle as I was walking. Go back and listen to that if you want to hear the story. But they're here. There's a lot of snakes. And because you have water snakes like water moccasins, it's another thing you got to take care of if you're going to go into the water. So when you're talking about freshwater bodies of water around here, although they're all over the place, you really can't go in them. And even when you're not in the water, you need to keep an eye out for them. Sarah and I went over to Chestnut Park. There's an area that they have caution taped off. We're sitting there and we ran into these other 2 ladies and we were talking to them. And I said, yeah, I see this caution tape here all the time, but saw some little baby gators last year, but I've never seen any gators this year. Sarah goes, I do. And I look at her and I go, where? She goes, right there. She points like 15 feet away from us and right at the edge of the water. I'm not kidding when I say 15 feet. It was really, really close. You see the 2 eyes and the nose of Mama sitting there floating above the water. She was a pretty big gator. I would say she was probably about 8 feet long, and I didn't even see her there. And I always see gators. I never miss any of them. At least, I'm not sure how many I've missed now. Maybe I only see the ones I see. But they're a thing. The other day, I'm walking through my apartment complex. I see this grasshopper on one of the walls. I'm like, what the heck is that? It's like Godzilla. This grasshopper was like 7 inches long. I mean, it was massive. Had some really pretty colorings on it and so forth. And Pam goes, oh, stay away from that. That's poisonous. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's poisonous. Well, apparently she'd seen one of these grasshoppers before. So she took a photo of it and she posted it online and some people came back and then she looked it up. Sure enough, it's a poisonous grasshopper. Secretes a poison if you try to touch it or grab it or something like that. Bottom line is, we even got monster grasshoppers out here that are poisonous. So if the gators and the snakes and poisonous grasshoppers, apparently we got poisonous frogs in the water. Lionfishes are invasive, but they're all over the place. They're poisonous fish that can happen in the water here. And if that stuff's going to bother you, this might not be the place for you. The number 8 thing that might deter people from moving to the Tampa area is you're going to be keeping an eye out for storms all the time. Even though we don't get hit, I think the last major storm that hit Tampa was like 100 years ago, the last major hurricane. But you're always keeping an eye out for that stuff, especially if you own property in the area. You're always going to keep an eye out for that. I watched the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's page. I take a look at it once a week. There's 2 depressions or whatever that you might want to look at right now. There's one like off the coast of Africa down there, and another one a little farther up that they're saying has less than a 40 chance of turning into a hurricane. But if you're living here, whether you want to trip on it or not, you're always keeping an eye out for that. And if you're someone that's going to trip on a hurricane coming and blasting you, and you want to spend half your year during hurricane season constantly stressing out on it, you're gonna. The number 9 reason that this might not be the place for you is red tide. I've actually reached out to the Moat Marine Laboratory to try to get them to come on and do a show with me. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. But red tide is a thing here. And it's one of the things that's kind of stopped me from being able to go to the beaches for the past 2-3 weeks. And I don't know how long it's going to last. This is some info I'm going to read from the Moat Marine Lab's website. A red tide or harmful algae bloom is a higher than normal concentration of a microscopic algae. In marine environments along Florida's west coast and elsewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, the species that causes red tides is Carina brevis, abbreviated as K. brevis. Many red tides produce toxic chemicals that can affect both marine organisms and humans. The red tide organism K. brevis produces brave toxins that can affect the central nervous system of fish and other vertebrates, causing these animals to die. Wave action can break open K. brevis cells and release these toxins into the air, leading to respiratory irritation. For people with severe or chronic respiratory conditions such as emphysema or asthma, red tide can cause serious illness. The red tide toxins can also accumulate in molluscan filter feeders such as oysters and clams, which can lead to neurotoxic shellfish poisoning in people who consume contaminated shellfish. That's not easy to say. Anyway, it's a thing. I'd heard about the red tides. I went to a beach up by Howard Island and saw about 3-4 weeks ago that the beach was not closed, but they were recommending people don't go in the water. And they were saying because of the red tide, we're not going to charge a parking fee here. And then my friend Tim and his wife were staying down in Siesta Key a couple of weeks ago. So Pam and I went out and visited them. Didn't really notice anything in the air, but I walked down to the water's edge and there were dead fish at the top of the wave, like where the waves would be, the farthest wave spot where the waves would push things into. There were dead fish all the way down the shoreline. And I'm talking a line created by dead fish. Thousands of them, not just 1 or 2 dead fish, to the point where I'm like, oh crap, I went in the water. I walked back, I washed off my legs and stuff like that. I didn't notice anything bothering me in the air that day. Apparently the respiratory irritation can change from day to day, and Moat Marine Laboratory has a beach conditions thing that you can search to see how bad it is. Now, about a week after that, Pam wanted to go down to Clearwater. Her and her daughter went down there, and I didn't want to hang out there because of the red tide. Sarah and I said, well, we'll go down and we'll meet you at Palm Pavilion. We'll all have lunch together. So we go down there. Palm Pavilion's right on the beach. It was a windy day this day. And when I first hit the beach, I coughed a little bit. And then I went, is a red tide making me cough? Is that psychological? It's just psychological. Then I kept coughing a little bit. And I thought, well, maybe I got some sand in my throat or something like that. I tried to blow it off because I thought I'm getting in my own head. Turns out Sarah's throat was irritated too. And when we sat down in the restaurant, we ate. Pam and Taylor said their throats had been tickling since they'd been there, and they'd seen several other people coughing on the beach. So the red tide this year is a particularly bad one. According to the Moat Labs site, the red tides can last from a couple of weeks to it can last all year. So those are the top 9 reasons why you might not want to move here. It's going to depend on your age, whether 10 is something to cause you hesitancy or not. But the age of the residents here, there's a lot of people that are older. If you're younger, you may not like it. You may feel like you're just kind of a fish out of water. You may not feel like you're fully in your place. If you're older, you might like it. I found this thing here that listed the oldest cities in the United States. And 11 of the top 20 oldest cities in the United States are right here in Florida. Now, it breaks down a little bit because although the oldest city in the United States is the Villages, Florida, a median age of 67.5. Punta Gorda is number 2 at 59.8. That's right down by Charlotte Harbor, which is down by Cape Coral, Fort Myers, south of here. You go down the list here to number 8. Sarasota, Florida is the number 8th oldest city in the United States with an average age of 53. Naples, Florida, 51.6. Ocean City, New Jersey is on this list at 13 at 50.4. However, if you go to Google and just search Palm Harbor is 50.4, and it's not even on this list. Maybe they're only going by larger cities. So if you come out here in Pinellas County, it's going to be a lot older. If you look in Tampa, like Tampa, the city of Tampa, the median age is 35.7, which is considerably younger. So if you are a younger person, you might want to go over by the city of Tampa if you want to be around people more your age. If you get out on this peninsula in Pinellas County, you might see a lot older people. If you go south of the peninsula, like the other side of Sunshine Skyway down by Sarasota, you may see a lot of older people there as well. But you are going to find places here where the people, if you are younger, are a lot older than you. Now, I'm right in there. The Palm Harbor median age is 50.4. I'm a little bit older than that, but I'm right in there. So I don't really have a problem with it. My daughter, on the other hand, kind of has a problem with it. It doesn't feel like home to her because everybody around her is dad's age. I talked about this a little bit in episode 2. One of the things that really sucks in this area is all the deed restricted 55 and older communities. My daughter's looking for a condo, and these 55 and older deed restricted communities are absolutely everywhere. And it's just straight up total age discrimination. It makes her feel unwelcome that she can't find a place to purchase to live in that will allow her to live there because they all say she's too young. So that is something that you may weigh, maybe not necessarily in moving to Tampa, but in choosing the place you want to live around Tampa. And if your idea of moving here is to live near the beaches, well, that's where a lot of the older people are living, so you need to take that into consideration. The number 11 thing is kind of like a half because it's going to depend on where you're coming from. If you're coming from up north, this isn't a thing for you guys at all. But for someone like myself who moved out here from California, the time zone change is a thing. And the sports games out here, man, they're all on in the middle of the night. I'm a Giants fan, and I'm trying to follow Giants games on the radio, and I'm finding myself staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning every night to watch those games. And it's the same thing with the basketball games, with football games, especially if you like the West Coast teams. If you got to get up early, you ain't going to be able to follow your teams. Giants games going into extra innings or something like that, it's like, holy cow. Not just that time change, but if you have people back home, the East Coast, West Coast time change, talking on the phone and all that stuff, that's definitely something you need to take into consideration. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to hear more, I did take most of the audio that I used in this video from a podcast of the same name. It is my podcast I do in the area called Exploring Tampa, Florida, and Beyond. The podcast was podcast number 20. So if you want to hear more in depth and maybe some more stories related to these individual subjects, you can go ahead and check that out. So until next time, never forget to pursue your dreams, create your happiness, and live your life. We'll catch you later.